Hi guys, it's Arshil Ahi, and in today's video, I'm going to interview a young gentleman whose name is George Ball. Now, the reason why I got George online is because I've been working with George for approximately 12 months, and it's been a real pleasure watching his progression in the property sector. Now, what George has been doing, he's been working on land deals, he's been doing some property flips, he's been now started to generate a HMO portfolio. And this has all been within a time frame of 12 months. And he's going to be telling you his story on that. Now, before you go into that, I need a small favor from you. If you wouldn't mind hitting the subscribe button and the notification bell every time I release a video, you get notified of it. This channel is sponsored by the Property Investor app. And for those that don't know, the Property Investor app is the UK's first property investment platform, which showcases all kinds of deals all over the UK. Whether you're looking for a below market value deal, a rent to rent deal, a lease option deal, we've got them all there. For you to get involved, it's very simple. You can either go to propertyinvestorapp.co.uk or you can go to the App Store and type in Property Investor and download it from there. It really is as simple as that. So without further ado, let me now pass you over to George Ball.
Hi, and welcome to this mini session. And I've got online with me good friend, George Ball. Hi, George. How are you?
Morning, mate. How are we getting on?
I'm okay, mate. How are you? You're looking pumped, mate. You look like you've been to the gym.
Yeah, we had a little cheeky gym session. When you messaged me last night saying you're jumping on Zoom, I thought I'd better do my hair and get a little pump on.
Fair enough. Right, George. So just introduce yourself, really, George. Who is George? What's George all about? Where is George based? And what's George's kind of vision?
Yeah, good question. I guess it's a question you sort of evaluate every year because things are constantly evolving within the property sector and what we're doing. So my primary role is I'm actually land director at a company called Openview Homes, which is one of my companies. And my role is to go out there to try and find land that others can't, won't, and can't find. Simple as that. And that sort of has evolved through the years to where we are today. So really the goal today and where we're at the moment is to build more houses, to build up a nice investment pot, to run alongside that, and to keep growing as a business. Simple as that.
Okay, so you've got multiple, it's almost like timeline strategy. So build more homes is more of almost like a long-term strategy because to acquire the land, etc., takes a bit of time. But in the meanwhile, you build in a portfolio as well.
Absolutely, mate. And that's one of the reasons why we started the journey with you guys, was kind of using that skill set of identifying opportunities. Yeah. And to identify opportunities, a lot of the things that I do is direct to vendor. So I'm very good at the talking part, Ash.
I've said this to you all the time. I think your massive skill is that I could put you in a room with vendors and I know that you would be able to close a large majority of them hands down because that is your skill. Now, I think, the hardest part that I think you found initially was how do I get in front of them? Would you agree?
Absolutely, mate. So coming from a sales background, I'm all about leads. And I just want to sit in front of more people. But as you know, mate, leads are great, but you've got to be able to transact on those.
And well, what's the difference? Well, there's a lead and then there's a deal. And believe it or not, they've both got the same letters. It's just arranged differently. So absolutely, lead and deal. So you have to convert it from a lead to a deal because a lead is just an inquiry in essence.
But it's also taking it a step back from that is you get a lead, but you need a skill set to be able to identify the opportunity from that lead. And that is something that I was lacking. Okay. And something you teach, and it literally ingrained in me, is every lead's an opportunity.
I've said this to you multiple times, monetize every deal, monetize every lead. And again, going back to the point, is it for you? We had this call yesterday. We had, a call yesterday and I said, think of it from point of view is that if you worked on generating that lead, spend the time in understanding that lead and then monetizing that lead, identifying, is it for you? If it's not for you, will it work for someone else?
Yeah, exactly that. I think the saying is, if you can't buy it and you can't rent it, can you sell it? It's literally 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. So, okay. So what's happened over the last year then, George? Because it's been an exciting year for you.
Yeah, we've been very, very busy, mate. So like I said, the skill set here is getting the leads, getting in front of people and really making sure that the people that we're dealing with feel comfortable dealing with me and my organization. So looking at that, we sort of evolved our business. So I know at the beginning of the conversation, we said land was very much what we're looking at. And those land deals, they take time. Unfortunately, the way of the world at the moment, the pandemic, we've seen, planning councils, authorities, huge delay. So my business relied very, very heavily on securing land, obtaining planning permission, and then either A, selling that land on with the planning uplift, or B, building out the houses. That's a very long-term strategy. And as a business, one of the issues that we had was we were growing, but then we didn't know how quickly we could grow because the system didn't rely on how good I was on my job. So we were having that natural bottleneck. So we sort of evolved and said, how can we ensure that we keep the business running? We can ensure that we're still getting these leads and we're still getting these opportunities, but how can we monetize them in the short term? So that's really, how things have evolved. So where we've now been looking at opportunities, we look at opportunities where we're using our skill set of saying, okay, where can we add value to this opportunity? Is it through doing a quick planning application and then either selling it before the planning application gets approved, which could be 12, 18 months down the line, and putting it into something like auction? Or can we look at something where we just create more hope value and then realize the profit quicker? Does that make sense? So every opportunity, and it's how we package that. So one of the big things that we've been looking at the moment is using our skill set with direct to vendor, using our skill set with marketing. It's a bit like a sausage machine. Although we're looking for land, can we look for distressed assets? Can we look for commercial properties? What can we look to do with that? Okay, so we carry on doing our direct to vendor, carry on directing dealing with the landowner, but it's that little smart part where we can say, okay, well, you're in a bit of trouble at the moment, or you've got a problem. Can I resolve that? And one of the, I think a couple of deals that I think that have gone very well this year is there been our auction property deals where we found distressed vendors. And when I say distressed vendors, Ash, these are people that are just about to face repossession.
Yeah.
They've tried other organizations that are, will buy your house in 28 days, and those companies have let them down. And it just so happens through word of mouth and people knowing that I can transact and I deliver on what I promise, they came to me. And both of these deals this year were really, really intense deals where the vendors were about to get repossessed. They had a warrant.
Yeah, well, and to be fair,
warrant date in 48 hours. So they've tried the other companies, and you can imagine these people are like, George, we're about to lose our house. They're coming on Wednesday. They came to us, okay, on both these occasions. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the deal, but yeah, we managed to exchange, stop the bank from repossessing the properties, repossessing and reallocating, okay, the homeowners. So we found them a new place to go and rent. And then during that period from exchange and completion, we then put it on the open market, and we actually, in fact, we put it on the under the auction, and we managed to trade those deals. And not only did the vendor get a profit, we made a very quick profit in a very short time frame, and everyone was a winner.
And we've got to also take into consideration that obviously, there are win-wins all over, because win-win is from the vendor's point of view. Yes, they were going through a tough time, but financially, their credit record is still intact. And that is something that lots of people overlook. Because let's face it, in the future, they want to go off and buy another house. If they want to get something as simple as open a bank account or go off and get a credit card, if they got repossessed, all those options are out the window for them.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And what people don't realize is once the bank take it over, there's very, very little money in it for them, if anything at all. Okay. So one of the opportunities is making sure that the vendors earn something out of it and making sure we could deliver. And, exchanging a contract within 24 hours, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, especially when you have families.
Yeah, I completely agree. Exchanging under time frames, been there many times. And as you know, George, you're on the phone to the solicitors consistently. Have we got the paperwork? Have we got the funds? Is everything in place? Have you got the redemption statements? Everything. So I feel your pain. I've been there, and it's a stressful time. But let's have a look at the figures then, George. So give us a rough example. And I'm not saying that you have to use exact figures, but give us an example of one of the deals that went through, and how did that look for you? How did it look for the vendor, etc.?
Yeah. So this was a deal in Romford, Essex. It was a property that came to me on the Thursday. And on the Monday, the bank were coming with an 11 o'clock warrant to repossess the property. Young family. They came to me and they were in a really, really bad situation. we knew that we had to stop the arrears, okay? And the moment we cleared the arrears, I'm not going to say the lender, but it's a lender that begins with a K. And the lender said, well, if you pay these arrears off, we will ensure that the property doesn't get repossessed. And it's a really, really bizarre thing because you can actually pay these arrears off. I don't know if you know this, but you can actually phone them up and pay it on over a credit card, over the telephone. Mm. So what we had to arrange is we need to ensure that we have the infrastructure in place. So it's all well and good saying, I agree this and all the will in the world. It's not down to me to be able to transact that. I need a very good solicitor that has the ability to be able to read a contract within 24 hours, make sure that I'm safeguarded. And I also need to make sure the seller has a solicitor in place that can also familiarize themselves with these type of contracts. So there's two parts that I need to find here. So I managed to find a solicitor for the seller. I managed to find a solicitor for myself, okay? And within 24 hours, we managed to get that done, okay? By 5 o'clock Friday, though, if we didn't have the money with Kensington, okay, it would have been very tight because it wouldn't have gone through till 9 o'clock on Monday, which was a bit of a risk to me. Unfortunately, we missed the deadline for the chaps payment at 5 o'clock. So just to give you a bit of an idea here, we had to organise this over the weekend. So not only did we have to organise the transfer from my solicitor's account to their solicitor's account, the seller's solicitor had to ensure the money was in their bank account so they could pay down the arrears Monday morning. Can you imagine how stressful that is?
Yeah, of course. I completely get that. But, you could have done it an easier way, but there wouldn't have been any security for you. And the reason why I say that is because you could have very easily called up the mortgage company, give them your credit card details. You could have paid off the arrears, but that's not giving you any security over the property. So the vendor could have very easily said to you, George, thanks very much. Oh, by the way, I'm keeping the property now.
Exactly.
And that's it.
And that's another thing we had to discuss was the moment that we exchange contracts, we had to have vacant possession upon exchanging the contracts. So during that point of front, I need to find them temporary accommodation. And the reason why we put that in place, Harsh, it sounds really obvious. And I know that with all the will in the world, I don't know these people very, very well. Okay. They've come to me, very nice people. I'm going to try and help them. Okay. However, there's a good chance that they could say, George, thanks for paying those arrears off. And by the way, now we've taken away the stress. Now the bank's not going to repossess our property. Does that make sense? So they could stay in the property. Okay.
Yeah.
So for me, one of the key things is we try and negotiate and exchange, and we want to push that completion as far down the line as possible. So it gives me enough time to either A, organize my finance, or B, be able to sell that on to someone else during that time frame.
And also give yourself the time frame to also find them accommodation as well.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. So it's there's a lot of moving parts, but the good news is 9 o'clock on the Monday, we managed to complete that particular property. We purchased for 320, and we managed to sell in auction at a substantial profit, which was 350. Okay, so within that time frame, we exchanged on I think about 32,000. And you can see what I try and do is whatever we exchange on, whatever the capital amount I'm exchanging on, I try and make as a profit margin. Does that make sense?
So you're working on 100% return on investment.
Exactly that. Exactly that.
Brilliant. Where else?
One a month, we'll try and do one of those. Now, those opportunities don't always come about. Okay, you can imagine. So when they do come about, and we have a very particular framework that we work with. We'll only work with freehold. Okay, I'm only interested in houses. Okay, because I know that that's what the demand is in the auctions that I'm operating in the areas that I work in. So I know that I've got my best chance of maximizing that profit. So it's a really important. So there's a lot of opportunities come, but it's about ensuring that we have the right opportunities because my model's trading, it involves liquidity. So I need to have as many of those options going because it doesn't always go well at auction. Okay. And if it doesn't, okay, what's plan B? Does it work for me to refurb the property? Does it work for me to purchase the property myself? Okay, then put it on the open market. I've always got to have multiple exit strategies.
Yeah, no, I get that, and it's great that we've gone through all those options. I mean, all the conversations that we've had throughout the year have been about what should we do with this, what should we do with that, and we've talked about now moving forward that the more leads that you get in about, if they're not in your area, etc. Now packaging them out, putting them out there, because now that you've created your own formula, you're in a position where you can turn those leads into deals for other people.
Absolutely.
So you've also kind of relocated during this process as well. So you're going through a bit of a, you're doing it all in one go, which is stressful in itself. So you're now moving into the Nottingham area, is that right?
That's right, mate. So just coming back to the reason for that is we had a little bit of a war chest, okay, from selling land, okay, and it was like, okay, that's great, but we don't know when the next opportunity is going to come about. Are we going to get paid in 18 months, 24 months? And you can't grow a business like that. So income, and I know it sounds really obvious, but income is sort of ensuring that you stay in this game. So the goal now is we're looking to build up the HMO portfolio. Okay, so we're doing high-end refurbs, high-end HMOs, generally studios. So that involves a kitchenette, an ensuite. Okay, and that's in the Derby and Nottinghamshire area. And we're looking to get 36 rooms in the next 12 months. So that's something we're working towards at the moment. We've got a project coming to the end now, which will be 6 studios. And we've got quite a few offers on a few commercial buildings at the moment. So
and the aim is do them to really high standard, refinance, get all your money back out, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
I would love to say that I'm getting all my money out, but it's just the reality is not true, mate. For us at the moment in this current market, but I'm accepting what it is at the moment, and I'm essentially buying income, Arsh. Okay.
Yeah, you are buying income, but you're also going to get a large majority of funds out.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
You're gonna have money tied into it, but then you've calculated that as to how many months is it going to take for you to get that money back out as well. Yep. So you look at it from a point of, if you can't get the money out straight away, how long will it take? And then you have a look at, is it worth doing it? Is it worth tying up the cash for that period? So yeah, even though I said that at the start, you've still got a very clear strategy as to how it's going to work, and you've already identified how many, the style of property that you want, how many rooms each property is going to have, what that property is going to be generating. So you've done a full-on cash flow model, and I can say that because I've seen it. And then off the back of that, you've also then potentially also looked at the refinance strategy, so that before you even look at before you even offer on a property, you know what it's going to be producing. You're going to be knowing what its returns going to be. You're going to be knowing what the refinance capabilities are. And to be fair, it's a solid plan. I've said it to you all along. It's a solid plan.
I think the goal in a lot of this, and I think a lot of people lose sight in this, is your skill set only evolves in property. Okay, so the longer you stay in the game, the more skilled you become at this. But the key is you need to stay in the game. Okay, and I think that's what people lose sight about. So for me, it's kind of like at the moment, look, we need to ensure that we've got this income piece. Let's lay the foundations right. If it means moving to a different part of the country to ensure that I'm getting the opportunities, that I can move on things quick, that I can make the right connections. And it's a short-term gain. You know, sometimes in life, you've got to take a bit of a plunge. I'm very lucky. I've got a supportive family. So we're up here for 2 years with a very specific goal. And let's see where it goes. And I think as the systems evolve, so something I didn't mean to get into, but one of the things that me and you've been talking about is, you know, it's income's great, okay, but how can I these properties that I'm buying and doing high-end refurbs, it's very capital intensive. So I've got 2 options. I can either raise more money, or I can look at other strategies that skill set complements. So one of the things that we're looking to do, and we're discussing with you at the moment, is systemizing, and it's looking at the rent-to-rent model, because coming back to it is, I'm confident if I can sit in front of a vendor, a landlord, I'm confident I can bring that home through the systems that we've got in and making sure that they know what I'm talking about. I'm confident that we can get that over the line. So that's something that's evolving now as well, is the rent-to-rent, rent-to-HMO model that we're looking to run out in the East Midlands.
So you can see that George was looking at multiple options. He's got the long-term strategy, the land, the planning model. That's the long-term, and that, as you can see, that it just takes time. But in the meanwhile, he's supplementing that by creating an income model, and the income model is the HMO strategy and also the rent-to-rent strategy. The rent-to-rent will allow him to acquire properties quickly. The HMO strategies, he's going to have to develop them, refinance them, get them out. So they're a little bit more long-term, medium-term, to refinancing and building asset base, whereas the rent-to-rent is pure cash flow. And then we also talked about potentially converting some of those rent-to-rents into lease options as well. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. So George can then potentially put those in his pipeline as an asset building strategy. So go on then, George. I might as well ask the question: what have you learned working with me for 12 months? We talk a lot. We talk a hell of a lot. George, you've come and spent a few days in the office. And I've seen George, so with the EPT, come and get to shadow me in the office, and I get to see George. George doesn't sit down. George doesn't sit down. So George talks and walks. Is that fair to say, George? So tell me what have you learnt, mate?
I think for me, the biggest things to learn is that every opportunity is an opportunity. Okay. Every lead, there is someone out there. If it doesn't work for you, there is money to be made in it. And you think about that quite logically, that's quite a breakthrough moment, because it makes you realize that every opportunity is a way to make money. Okay. And that was something that I was very rigid before. And it was only through sitting down with you and you said, George, those numbers are great, but there's someone else that will work for. Everyone's situation is different.
And I said this here, and let's just use the analogy, George, of let's go back to your example of the property that you put in auction. Now, there would have been people that looked at that property and says, "Oh, at 350, that's too expensive for me. I can't. We can't make those figures work." How many times have you been into an auction room and you've seen a property go well in excess of the guide, well in excess of the reserve? And George would have looked at that and says, "There's no way I'm paying for that." But there's been someone out there, and they've got an angle for it. Everyone in property has got an angle for something. So again, when we look at the HMO model, people are doing standard student HMO. Some people like George doing really high-end HMO. So he will be able to spend more money on it, knowing that he's going to be able to realize that in the capital value and then get that back out. There are people doing social housing. There are people doing supported domiciliary care. People turning them into mini care homes. People turning them into service accommodation. And each of these have their own cash flow model. And as a result of having a higher cash flow, they can afford to pay more for the property. But to you and I, looking at it from the outset, it's crazy to think that, why have they spent that money on the property? But they've done their research on that property before going, and they've gone in there with a much higher checkbook balance than perhaps you or I would go with on that property.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to tell you something else that I learned from you is when Arsh gets an opportunity, he doesn't mess about. Okay. Literally, it's all about, and you'll see this on some of the live calls, pick up the phone, do it now. Do it now. Pick up the phone and call the vendor now. And it's just, it's really old school, but that is the way to, why are you sending a letter? Why are you sending an email? You've got the number, pick up the phone. And you'll see that on the live calls. I'm just like, fair play. And you will get a result from it of some sort. It may not be the result you want, but at least you move on. And I think that's something.
George, and I said this to you yesterday, sending a letter, I don't read letters. It's very rare that I actually even read emails anymore. We're bombarded by letters. I want an instant response. I want an instant response. So pick up the phone. More importantly, I've said this to you multiple times, piece of paper. How many words can I put on a piece of paper? So on one sheet piece of paper, I think you're going to get approximately 300 words. Whereas if I have that conversation, and then again, on that piece of paper, how are they going to interpret that letter? Are they going to think, "Oh, this is very cold. Oh, I don't like the tone of this." Whereas if you pick up the phone to them, I can rely on George securing that deal because of George's personality. So George can build rapport. George is very good at building rapport. George is very good at breaking the ice. George is very good at getting the appointment. Once I know that George is through the door, I know that George is securing the deal. And this is what I've said to you all along. If you have the opportunity to pick up the phone, always pick up the phone. Always pick up the phone, yeah. Always arrange, and even don't pitch them on the phone. I've said this to you all along. Don't pitch them on the phone. Let's just say, here's who I am. Here's what I'm about. I'm in the area. Do you fancy a coffee? And if George can get there and go and have a coffee, I know that if George is in their house, George is walking away from that house with the keys. And I've said this to you all along, mate. I think you've got a fantastic asset in your personality, in your ability to close. And what I want to now focus on for you for the next year is closing deals. When I say closing deals, you've already demonstrated your closing deals and the deals that you've done with the auction, and you've generated fantastic profits off that. You've also done that on land. Now, they're bigger deals and they're much more complex deals. I'm going to say this to you. Let's take it back to grassroots. 100%. Let's take it back to grassroots, and let's take it back to the rent to rent. And let's generate these properties that are generating between £600 to £1,000 a month. Let's do multiple of those. And then you've got a standard base model, cash flow model, which is generating income regardless of what the land or what the auctions are doing.
Exactly that. And I think you confidence builds from transactions, right? So
Well, it's the more calls you make, the more you learn, And the reason why I say this is because if you're not making any calls, you're not generating any deals, full stop. Whereas you make calls, you make mistakes on the calls, you then, after the call, you then kind of evaluate the call, what went well, what didn't go well. When I said this to the vendor, how did they react? How did they react to that? And then you start to then almost like hone your craft. And then it gets to a point where you've got that pretty much that model that you know what's going to work well, what's not going to work well. And, you know, you sit on the live calls, the older people that I speak to, it's very much a nice, calm, relaxed. We have a chat. What are you going to do with the money? You off to relax? You off to, you're off to emigrate. Lots of them, retiring, emigrating to Benidorm, wherever it may be. And then that's a different conversation. We've got a younger family. We've got younger people that are looking to upscale, downscale, whatever it may be. That's a different conversation. But you need to understand how to it's almost like dancing. You've got to understand the different dance methods. And it's, when it's sort of conversation, it very much, when you're on the phone, it very much is a psychological conversation. Where are we going with this conversation? What did they say? How do I react? And it is very reactive. And I've said this to you all along, and that's where you are phenomenal at reacting to the conversation, picking up on the key points, and off the back of that, getting your foot through the door.
Yeah, and the competition's not doing that, Ash. Okay, and
exactly.
This is basic stuff, but it's not being taught at the sort of grassroots level of property investment. This is a people's business. Get it? Forget about all the strategies and all this. Okay, ultimately, do I believe you're going to deliver on what you're going to say you do? Can I trust you? And that's what it comes down to. It's basic human fundamentals, and to do that, you need to speak to people.
Yeah, I completely agree, and this is why that's why I said, George, you as a person. You are the person to deliver that. And if we can get you to do that to scale, we've also started talking about you training up other people so that in your organization, they can generate multiple leads where you are the person just going in the house and then delivering and delivering.
But you still need the skill set, Ash, don't you? It's all well and good picking up on the problems, but if you don't know how to solve the problems, okay, and this is where the fundamentals of, EBT and, what you're learning, etc. It's listening, using this, and then going, I might have a solution for that. Okay. Would a purchase lease option work for that? Okay. Okay. Would this work? You need to know what questions to ask and then how to spot it, which is the skill, but that's teachable. That is all teachable.
Yeah, I completely agree. And to be fair, I'm glad that you've mentioned a couple of things. Like we had a chat at the start of this and I said, George, let's just tell them what you've learned. And I'm glad that you picked up on these because, again, I've mentioned these two words in the EPT almost like every session: pain and motivation. What's their pain points? Why are they motivated to do the deal? How are they motivated to do the deal? Is it cash? Is it time? Is it life circumstances, etc.? And once we understand what that motivation is, we can create a solution for that. And we're very big on that.
Yeah, massive.
So I've said it all the time. Motivation is never always money.
No,
motivation may be time. Motivation might be people are emigrated, people are upscaling, downscaling, people are motivated by the fact that their chain's just fallen through and they're about to lose their other house. So many different channels. And if we listen to it, and I always say we've got two of these and one of this, if we use these and then we respond with this, you're in a win situation.
Yeah, definitely.
So George, next 12 months plan is to build a portfolio, but also still continue. So we're going to be running multiple models. We're going to be running, create HMOs, whether it be rent-to-rent or purchase, and then also potentially look at the land deals. We've not even spoke about land deals, about how we use other platforms and portals so that we can look at projects that have not gone according to plan. So planning failures, shall we call them? And so that's one of the things that I want to try and get you on as well. Because then again, remember, it's not about just whether you want to take those deals on. You could get those deals packaged ready for someone else.
Yeah.
So George, any lasting words? So if someone's watching this and they're listening it and they're thinking, oh, do I need a bit of training, or what's EPT all about? In your own words, tell us what you think about it.
Look, a lot of this information is readily available. Okay. However, you need to understand where the information is coming from. Has the person actually done what they said they've done? Now, it's fair to say the time that I've spent with Ash, and I do mean is, he has done every strategy. He does it himself before he teaches it. He sets the systems up. Okay, even from the point he was telling me about his rent-to-rents in Nottingham this year, and the problems that he's had. So he's been there, done it, and he's doing all the strategies. Okay, there isn't something I could say, oh, I'm thinking about this marketing strategy. George, I did that, 10 years ago. Did that, it worked, or it didn't work. Arsh has been there and done it. Okay, but I think the key thing that really, really caught my eye about this is how many other courses, how many other online portals do you have the opportunity where you say, Arsh, I'm stuck on a deal. Can I book a call in tomorrow for 10 minutes? That is just so invaluable. Can we organise a day in the office? And I've been up on 2 occasions just to understand, how Arsh's day is structured, okay? And more importantly, what should I be doing, Arsh? If I want to get this outcome, what would you be doing? Quite simple, George. You need to go on spare room. You need to phone 20 landlords today and 20 landlords tomorrow. So I think those 2 things there, were the key reasons why I joined up, because I can go and find out about purchase lease options. I can go and find out about rent to rent flip. There's 101 resources, from free resources to paid resources, but the opportunity to be able to actually quiz, question, I've got a deal, Arsh, how am I going to finance that? I've got this deal. Do you know a solicitor that can help with this particular type of strategy? That in itself is really, really invaluable. And I'd say to anyone that if you're serious about that and you're not too sure where to start, I would say this was a very good starting point. So
fantastic. Thanks for that. To be fair, I was secretly smiling inside because, the other day you text me and say, oh, I've got a deal where I need to move quickly. Who's the solicitor that you use? And I gave you contact details for my own personal solicitor. Did you speak to him, by the way? Did you speak to David?
I have, yeah.
Okay. So he's really good, really, really good. So, so in terms of that, you get my personal contact. So yeah, I'm glad it's going well for you. More importantly, George, I've said to you this all along. Your opportunity to earn is endless, and because you've got all the right capabilities, you've got the right assets, and you've got the personality for it. You've got the sale, and more importantly, I think I said this to you, George. You've got the drive. You've got the drive. If I was going to be fully critical of George, it's perhaps that I've seen when he comes into the office, there's like a million things bouncing out of his head, and sometimes I have to slow George down. So George, let's take focus. Yeah. Let's understand what's our focus here. And sometimes George wants to do this, that, and the other. And to be fair, that's what everyone does. Everyone does, and it's But sometimes it's about taking stock and think, okay, we've got this. We need to do this. And then let's just focus on that one strategy, even if it be for a period of a month, 2 months, and you see the goals from that. Whereas if you're if you're spinning plates in all different different directions, locations, naturally they're all going to be spinning, but then none of them are going to come to fruition.
Yeah, 100%. Shiny penny syndrome. And I think every property investor has that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this strategy this month because I've seen him on social media do that. Okay.
Yeah.
What it doesn't show is, he's been working on that for 9 months to get that deal over the line. It's
I get that. So George told me about one deal that he's doing, a land deal, remote land deal. I said, and George sent me. He says, I've been working on this 2 years, and yeah, it takes time. But in the same respect, you've got to just make sure that you focus on the end goal. So George, I want to thank you very much for your time. Really, I've enjoyed it. To be fair, I'm going to get you on the podcast. I think, George. On a podcast because I think you've got lots of good tales to tell, and more important, people can learn a lot from you.
Definitely.
So George, I'm going to say thank you very much for your time. And any, as always, if anyone that's watching this got any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll speak to you all soon. Thanks, George.
Cheers, mate. Look after yourself.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
So I don't know about you guys, but I was really inspired by that. I love George's journey. I love George's energy. And more importantly, I'm really excited about what George is about to do over the next 12 to 24 months. You can see that George has all the assets to be really successful in property. And it's my job to really push him to realise his potential. Now, as part of the Elite Property Tribe, you've got me almost like on tap, calling me within the allocated timeframes, where you can pick up the phone and say, Arsh, I've seen this deal, but perhaps I need a bit of assistance getting that. And that's what the Elite Property Tribe is all about. It's about that hand-holding service. So for those that may be interested in the Elite Property Tribe, do me a favour. You can either go to my website, which is arshilahi.com, and then go to the contact page, fill in your details in there, and then I will give you a call and we'll have a discussion around whether the Elite Property Tribe is right for you. You could be as successful as George. As well as that, we've got lots of other testimonials of other members in the Elite Property Tribe that have equally been as successful as George. So there we have it, guys. Hopefully you've really enjoyed that. You've enjoyed that session, and more importantly, hopefully you're going to start to take action. Now, as always, we've got lots more free content. You can go and check out my podcast. We release a podcast every Tuesday at 6 a.m. It's called The Property Rebel. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, just to name a few. If you want to connect with me on social media, again, you can find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the handle of Arshilahi. And finally, as I mentioned at the start of this video, this channel is sponsored by the Property Investor app. It's the UK's first property investment platform, which showcases all kinds of deals all over the UK. So whether you're looking for that below market value deal, that rent to rent deal, that lease option deal, we've got them all there. Now, there's two ways to get involved. You can either go to our website, which is propertyinvestorapp.co.uk, or if you've got a smartphone, go to the App Store, type in Property Investor and download it from there. As always, guys, I wish you all to be safe, well and happy, and I look forward to speaking to you all very soon. Thank you and bye-bye.